Okay, so, hi. Week later than I thought it would take me to actually get back to this, but hey, look at the bright side. We have a new set. Ish. Like, I'm considering moving in here to do these regularly through this, but sadly I'm back on my camera, so the audio quality is different, and I've got to figure out / finagle adjustments to this. It's like, I've been busy a lot, so this is the first time I've actually had to, mess with this, but, hey, on the bright side, I'll be back to recording actual scripted episodes very soon. I'm actually waiting for my laptop to actually finish booting up so I can record the first video that'll be for June, actually. But, it's neither here nor there. I have 3 episodes of Lupinranger versus patranger, and I have 3 episodes of Build to, like, recap and get my thoughts on. So, last time on the Lupinranger versus patranger reviews. Oh, right, I'm also right next to the bathroom, so I had the problem with the pipes going off. In case you guys heard that, because I know the mic quality on my camera is crap. Anyways, Lupinranger versus patranger. Keiichiro accidentally destroyed a Lupin collection piece, because he is an idiot. The show did not do what we needed it to do to not have the appreciation of the patranger falter on this, in that have someone chew Keiichiro out for his reckless disregard for not only property, but the potential backlash of destroying a magical artifact that gives super abilities to its monster wielders. And yeah, bad time all around the patranger I'll give away for these 3 episodes. And it's really frustrating because the consistent way you get a versus event wrong, when you have 2 teams competing against each other and, you know, not doing the camaraderie thing, which they should be doing, but the consistent thing wrong with any team-up or clash of 2 hero teams is you automatically make one the superior to the other, or show one team over the other as more deficient in comparison. And that is consistently where Lupinranger versus patranger keeps screwing up, in that it's gone beyond the point of making fun of the police in how they're intelligent, but those sneaky thieves just keep getting away. No, we keep missing that, and it's mainly due to Keiichiro, because, okay, Zenigata was an extremely driven individual in the 3rd series, but he was consistently shown to not be this much of a reckless, thoughtless idiot. Like, when they got into situations where there was a mutual enemy, he would team him up with Lupin as the lesser of 2 evils, but they keep fucking this up with Keiichiro because at the time, this was episode 10 of the show. They know by now that the Lupinranger are collecting the Lupin collection pieces. They know there are things with the Lupin collection that leave them to be dangerous and sought-after items and need to be acquired before you destroy the monsters. That is the entire point of the clash between the 2 sides, even. And yet he just went out fully to destroy one without any thought or care, and the show doesn't call him on it. They completely ignore this, while otherwise that episode 10 of the show is focused around the heartbreak of the Lupinranger in how, because of this, they've lost their chance to save their friends and potentially revive them from the callous actions of, I'm looking this up on the wiki on my phone, but the stupid mobile wiki thing is just so horrible. Zamigo. Yeah, he's not been in the show enough, but yeah, Zamigo is the one who killed them. They do a lot with them that it makes the patranger's callousness even more unlikable, because I gotta say, between this and episode 11, I am now firmly in the Lupinranger, who will you cheer on debate. Because it's just... There are things to like about Tsukasa and Sakuya, but they are drenched out in the overall jackassness of Keiichiro. I mean, this is an example, again, of what keeps being screwed up with Super Sentai in their depiction of the protagonist Red Rangers. If you make the main character unlikable, you sunder the appreciation of that entire character faction or the show itself. Fortunately, because it's a Versus series, I can at least root on the Lupinranger, but god damn, is Keiichiro not consistently ruining this for me. But fortunately, as is lampshaded even the original episode, or not the original episode, the first part of this two-parter, the treasure chest of the Gangler wasn't left behind for it to be revived as a giant. And this is eventually what leads them to figure out, no, he pulled a switch, left a doppelganger in his place as a patsy, and the monster of the week skedaddled while the skedaddling was good. Now, the way they phrase this figuring out is that, hey, don't they usually go giants? And the thing about that is that they don't go giant on their own, so there is no way to know that that is the consistent pattern. That is Gauche? Yeah, that is Gauche's job to show up and do that, but there's no guarantee she will show up and do that every single freaking time. It's pretty much at her master's wishings, whether that is, and if he screwed up just enough that it makes sense that he wouldn't even bother with reviving the monster of the week. So, the logic the Lupinranger are running on is entirely flawed for the reasons why the monster must still be alive. Granted, that theory proves to be proven right, as after they tip off to the Powder Ranger of being the same thing, so the Powder Ranger can use the resources to track the guy down from potentially going into hiding, that they eventually are able to find the guy, re-engage the guy, and steal the Lupin collection piece properly this time, and pretty much win the day. Now, Kairi is off basically being mad at himself. He's stupidly not blaming Keiichiro, even though Keiichiro's idiocy is the one that got this, was the reason why they couldn't revive their friends in the first place. And it's already been shown that there's a growing animosity between Kairi and Keiichiro due to Keiichiro's actions in previous episodes, and, you know, trying to prevent this revival that you would think be played off of, but they're not. And basically he just encounters Zamigo, and suddenly he thinks, hey, if I can't actually revive them through the Lupin collection, I'll revive them by defeating Zamigo! This makes no sense. Like, literally, this makes no sense. He killed them, he killed their friends and family by freezing them to death. That is not exactly something you come back from. So, why the hell, Michigan, would you think that killing, like, defeating Zamigo would automatically bring back every person Zamigo is killed by freezing them solid? I mean, unless that's part of a Lupin collection piece thing where the people Zamigo freezes are then placed in ice crystals, but no, we clearly saw them shatter and the ice be left on the ground beyond them, so clearly there were dead chunks of person in those ice cubes, and they weren't just whisked away into the cornfield. So Kairi's actions here and thinking that'll be the way to revive their friends is just stupid. And admittedly, he could be going at it from the angle of, if I can't revive them, at least I can put their memory to rest by defeating their killer and, you know, that kind of thing. The whole pseudo-vengeance quest, but not a vengeance quest thing. Which I would more buy, but that's not what he freaking said. Still, one-on-one, the guy is pretty clearly overwhelmed, despite Kairi showing himself to be very capable with his abilities, as Zamigo has 2 chests in his upper thighs, with which he pulls a infinite amount of flintlock pistols out of. The flintlock pistols being what he uses to freeze people solid, even though he also says that he doesn't even need them to use that power to freeze people, which I just don't get. Is he gloating on that, or does he have some other powers that he's just focusing the gun through? Is the flintlock pistol he uses and clones his actual Lupin collection piece, or is his Lupin collection piece the ability to clone any number of copies of the flintlock pistol? The flintlock pistol, by the way, looking pretty similar to the Gokai guns, except without the extra adornments, so maybe that's the mold they wanted to use for that one, considering he's something of an outlaw. Granted, he kind of gives me, not Marvelous, Bosco vibes off of him, so that might be what they're trying to homage, considering how many of the Lupin collection things are homages to past Sentai teams. Nah. But yeah, from this battle, he unlocks the support ability of the dial and scissors, the dial scissors and blade, why am I saying it like that? The scissors and blade dial fighters, which turns into a giant shield and boomerang for use on the ground, which complements and contrasts their use in giant mech form. And I dig it. Honestly, I think that's a good way to add a bit of versatility to the VS vehicles, in that you can use them both on the ground and in the giant robot fights. And hey, they've been pretty smart about that thus far, so points there. And also their fights in the giant mech form, where basically the scissors, or the I think it's the scissors dial fighter, replaces the left arm to become the shield, and then splits off a second smaller fighter to become the sword. And honestly, I got a Transformers vibe from this. Back in the 90s, during the Transformers Generation 2 days, there was this figure that I think was called Dreadwing. It was based off of the same kind of configuration, a B-52 bomber with a smaller aerial fighter, which you could jack in the back. I really dug that figure. It was one of my favorites as a kid, even though it was ridiculously top-heavy, and the clips for the arms that fold into the back were not good, and I lost a bunch of the missiles because it had this giant missile launcher thing. But aesthetically, and the splitting off of a smaller fighter from the top of a B-52 bomber that's the base part really reminded me of that, so I definitely appreciate that aesthetic for it. I think that's the best way to phrase it. But yeah, episode 10, definitely a continuance of a compounding of errors, in that the show is not addressing what it needs to be to really, like, balance the cast appropriately. And episode 11 does not help this in the least. Episode 11 is, I have to pull it up on the Fandom Wiki because I gotta find the writer. Writer for this is Kaori Kaneko. Now, I already called this out in a previous vlog review of these episodes, but Kaori Kaneko is a completely new writer, and they are terrible at it. I'm not kidding at this. This was, again, a terrible episode, and surprise, surprise, it's focused on the patranger. It's like, these guys can seriously not catch a break. It's just, okay, this one. The patranger tried to drum up public support by starring in their own promotional movie, aka straight-up propaganda. Yeah. During the shooting of this is of course a Movie Madness episode, where movie tropes, quirks, and jokes are poked fun at as members of the teams get involved in making some sort of cinematic event, be it TV series, short video thing, but basically they're saving budget by shooting on the Toei backlot. We even get multiple shots of the Amori Hill! And then the stupid thing happens. Because in trying to dramatize the lives of the Patranger to make them seem like competent, like they are competent, successful, inspiring heroes, the universe decides to crap on that by a gangler infiltrating the production team, and its special power happens to involve gender swapping the cast. And they play with every single goddamn one of the jokes. And kind of an insulting way at that. It's like, this was last week, so again, it's not like it's fresh on my mind, but I have friends that are transgendered. I've watched a number of series which uses that for comedy, and the common theme is that they're not really willing to give a thoughtful critique, or not thoughtful critique, it's something, someone is turned into a girl, it's played for comedy. And that's all this episode is. It's just one big long string of unfunny transgender jokes, as then Tsukasa and Keiichiro are hit by the beams, and it's the groping of fake boobs, and Tsukasa looking no different than he previously did, because androgyny jokes. In fact, they play up the fact that Tsukasa is a gender-neutral name, and of course, I knew this before the episode because, of course, .X Sign and Tsukasa Kadoya would, well, Kamen Decade, I should say, that both use the name. Tsukasa is the Wave Master, who is the protagonist of .X Sign, and Tsukasa Kadoya, obviously, is Kamen Decade. And it's basically unfunny. It is the height of unfunny. I mean, you don't even manage to do a legitimate women in a dress bit. Like, what is supposed to be the joke? Oh, I know what it is. For once, you get Sakuya to make good decisions because he suddenly has women's intuition. That is not how that works. That is not how any of that works. It's like, it gets dumber from there as the story moves on. They're stuck in the stupid gender swap roles. They're playing with the tropes. Hell, even their transformed form costumes suddenly have a swapping of skirts and chest indents. It's like, I can't even remember a Super Sentai member what that was that stacked in the soup portrayal, as they suddenly make the males in this. And again, I can't help but stress, what is supposed to be the joke? What about this is supposed to be funny? What about this, moreover, what about this is supposed to reveal the Patranger as competent instead of just something to be laughed at? Hell, they don't even defeat the monster. It's up to the Lupinranger to do that, simply to show off more of the scissors and dial fighter combination. And this is where it gets even weirder, if that, as then the monster uses its gender swap ability on the sword part of the dial fighter, and then it suddenly changes into a hammer. So, inanimate objects do not normally have gender. So, what does this mean? Did the sword dial fighter identify as a hammer or something? Should I be worried that Mjolnir wants to be an axe? Okay, spoilers for Avengers Infinity War. Thor does get the axe Stormbreaker, which doubles as a hammer, but I don't think that's what they intentionally meant. It's like, machines normally I don't even know how to respond to this. I know from an outer world perspective why they did this. Like with the Kuma and Panda cube animals in Zyuohger, the hammer dial fighter uses the same mold as the sword dial fighter, and the hammer dial fighter was supposed to be a limited promotion item, so of course, they suddenly need to advertise in the show. But of course, the way they make use of that in swapping the sword for the hammer dial fighter, it makes it so that they can never advertise that item again, because its existence was such a specific situation, even for its creation, that you don't see them using it at random again, like the Zoodra ended up doing infrequently with changing the Kuma axe into the Panda axe. It's like, if you're gonna half-ass it so poorly, what is even the point? And it's like, I felt like I had more complaints about this, but again, it's been a week. I don't remember all the details that far out, and that's usually why I kind of have to script things, and honestly, last week was just a really poor timing for trying to figure out how to finagle this now with 2 roommates, to, like, get my time to do this privately. So, yeah, I really don't like this episode, and off the back of another episode that made the patranger seem even more unlikable, it's like, I'm pretty much done with trying to root for the patranger here, unless they somehow manage to make some big difference in how they're being showcased, which, honestly, considering Junko Kimura's past track record with poor utilization of characters, I wouldn't be surprised if they completely fail at it, because the problem is not her giving character to people, it's that she runs them through the same old tired shtick. It's an inoffensive shtick instead of, in comparison to the shows I constantly condemn, but it's nonetheless done better with the characters it was originally done with. Of course, this was not a Junko Kimura episode, so I can't exactly lay the blame on her in that, but I don't feel her fixing it in post. And I have a sneaking suspicion that... Kaori Kaneko is going to write the next series, because that is usually how Toei keeps doing this as of late. They bring in a new writer that you think will have new ideas, and they're completely terrible at their job because they don't get the training under the people who are actually competent in any respect. After, maybe one thing that was received positively because it was usually in the face of other Drek. Because that really does seem to be the pattern they're running with here. Fortunately, this week's episode 12, actually was so much better than the last 2, but of course, that's because it focused back on the Lupinranger. And the Lupin Collection Piece of the Week, which is a Time Ranger Morpher, aka the Time Ranger's brace, or at least the molding of it, which allows its users to speed up really damn fast. A subplot in the episode is this kid with a track team meet that he keeps failing at, and basically encountering the whole battle, and after the Lupinranger grabbed the Lupin Collection Piece in actually a good bit of subversion where they distract the monster long enough with praising it for its speed, that Umika? Trying to get the names right, that's why I even have this app pulled up. Goddamn, I hate the fandom app. Goddamn, I hate the fandom app. Yeah, Umika can steal it unawares, but it gets knocked away. The kid takes it, and after seeing the monster's speed up ability, he thinks it can give it its own... he thinks that by using it, he can gain the speed to win a track meet that he's running in for a hospitalized friend of his. Now, the smart way to go about this plot is that his friend was hospitalized because she was also a track runner, she broke her leg, and he's trying to win in her name. Well, he's still trying to win in her name, but his friend that is a girl is hospitalized for completely unrelated reasons. She's losing her ability to use her legs because unspecific illness, and she's actually a singer. So if she is she has a wish to become a singer, well, there's no reason she can't sing just in a wheelchair. There's, like, she can't do live performances, but that's never stopped anybody who's ever wanted to sing. And, in turn, what does winning a track race mean for, like, that kind of thing? It has no personal connection or impact to her. It's just something he does. And the only thing he would get out of it is her cheering on him to support him. So, again, what is the point in this? I guess the point would be in how it ties back to Tuma and basically his own perspective on this, since, you know, wanting to do something for a girl is not that different from the loss of his girlfriend slash could have been fiance that he lost. So it's definitely more on the Tuma side in him, like, seeing this guy's conviction and want to basically impress a girl, and that tying back to all of that, but it doesn't really connect very well. The patranger, again, do pretty much nothing. The monster, though, is interesting because, like I keep saying about, see, now I'm forgetting her name. Oh, it turns out that this was an Arakawa written episode. Nice to see him back for as short-lived as it's likely to be. But what I keep saying about, Junko Komura, normally, I guess it's not exactly appropriate anymore to say it, since she's not the one who wrote the episodes, that she's not particularly good at tying these disparate elements together in her works. But I'll credit her on this. Monster of the Week's main ability is explosives. Every bomb of theirs gives off, to the Power Rangers estimate, the equivalent explosive force of 10 kilograms of TNT. We see snapshots of all the explosions, and cross-reference this with the YouTube video. All of those bombs actually are scaled to the appropriate force of something getting hit with 10 kilograms of TNT. Why is it the episodes that, I guess that is, again, since this is, I just found it out that this is Naruhisa Arakawa wrote it, that is his usual attention to detail, and attempts to tie characters in. Actually, this is an episode not unexpected of Naruhisa Arakawa, as it's a Sentai team member teaches the idiot kid of the week that has to be guest starred a lesson. Because the ultimate resolution of this subplot is Tuma steals the bracelet back without the kid who stole it knowing, and replaces it with a fake, and basically in the midst of the battle where the monster's trying to reclaim it, encouraging him to go without it because using anything as a crutch just won't let them achieve what they really want to. They'll cheat, they'll rely on that more instead of achieving it on your own, and at the end of the day the kid actually wins the race he wanted the time manipulation bracelet for, so whoopee. But honestly, this just seems like this is not Naruhisa Arakawa's best work. So yeah, all caught up on patranger versus Lupinrangers, whatever. Build, however, has had a lot of things going down in the last 3 weeks, or 3 episodes in over 2 weeks. You know what I mean. First off, Banjo is an alien. What? Okay, that was my first response to this, but they actually explained it pretty well. 23 years before the events of the main series, a probe landed on Mars and brought back a sample of a, not exactly creature, but some type of organism, not unlike a symbiote from Marvel, you know, the guys that merge with people to become Venom. Ryuga's mother ended up encountering the life form, unbeknownst to her, when the probe arrived back at JAXA, and basically she became pregnant, since, yeah, all sorts of squick here, considering alien life form impregnated a woman to give birth to itself. This has been all types of strange and weird. Though the defense to this, however, infers that Ryuga's mom was already pregnant, and this entity just fused with the fetus and accelerated its growth to become its new body. And basically, what they explain from that is that Ryuga's been observed ever since then by the scientific populace of Japan, most significantly Sento's father, Shinobu Katsuragi, at least when he was alive. He was the foremost researcher on the Mars mission, and kind of brought his son Takumi in on this, and inspired all his science-y crap. So, in essence, we're bringing in this whole sins of the father thing, but Soichiro needs Ryuga, for reasons that aren't exactly explained in the narrative, but it's shown more and more that by Bernage choosing him and how the Pandora box reacts around him, that it's entirely possible that Ryuga has become a guardian for the powers of the Pandora's box. Matching how Ryuga always gets his boosts in power and ability when he's trying to protect someone as a combat fighter. So Ichiro keeps trying to egg him on in the sense of rage, battle, and conflict are all that Ryuga is, but that's not how we see his powers always reacting. It's always in the defense of someone else, which matches how, with Bernage calling him the hope of Mars, or the hope of the world against the Pandora's box, it matches how, with him potentially being the guardian of the box, it matches how in mythology, the only thing left in the Pandora's box after all the world's evils were unleashed was hope, which, if loosed, would be lost from the world forever. So this makes sense tying back to that, and why I think that's potentially the route they're going for this, because Soichiro wants... Or is it Soichi? He wants Ryuga stronger. He wants to bring out all of his power and the connection to the Pandora's box for some reason, and yet he covets that power due to him being possessed by Evolts, the destroyer of Mars in the first place, who tried to harness its power originally. As the arc goes on, it's revealed that Evolt, when Itsurugi got to Mars, pretty much jump-started all of this by claiming the Pandora's box and another device, and attempted to pretty much rain devastation in his attempt to harness its power for universal conquest and domination originally, only for it to backfire because the Pandora's box rejected him and instead created the Sky Wall due to the release of its power, which he didn't want to do. He just wanted to blow up the planet and be done with it. But back on the Ryuga bit, his growth in power has finally unlocked Cross Z Dragon Magma, and goddamn, that is a good suit. It's chromatic orange that kind of seems to glow like magma. They certainly make it do that in his full transformation sequence, where he has lava poured on him and dragon heads, kind of like a hydra, emerging from the molten rock before it breaking apart, to show that all those varied hydras are now the new rock-like armoring of the suit. It's really damn effective and powerful, as he beats down Blood Stark, who is somehow still in the running for insanely powerful in this series, and essentially claims the Pandora's box for himself, and they get it out of there. And in the following confrontation, that shows more of Ryuga's power with the form, to the point that it's burning himself to use it, as every time he breaks out of his initial battle mentality. He's like, he feels the pain of all the heat. Like, you know, going, ha-da-da, ha-da-da. It's kind of amusing and fits Ryuga's all kind of bouncing back and forth between a goofball character and a serious character in this, so yeah, I totally dig that. And honestly, for a power-up for him, it's really effective. The preview for episode 34 that aired at the end of episode 33 shows that it's possible Ryuga's leaving the show at the end of episode 34. You know, one of my big complaints about Build from the start is that Ryuga has throughout seemed like a completely superfluous character. So, you finally give him something, you finally make him the strongest rider in the show. We know he's going to get trumped eventually, but, you know, you gave him it in a good story arc for him, and then you tease that he's going to be leaving the show and having his final battle against Isurugi, and it's like, you finally gave him something when you gave him practically nothing before, and then you're shoving him out of the show again. Where was the logic in that? If he was so ultimately worthless in the grand scheme of things, why even introduce him? Why write him out so horribly like that after you just gave him a power-up 4 episodes before? It's like, there's the constant counter Lensman's arm race and making your power-ups pointless right after getting them. Like, come on! No other show has done this! But that's neither here nor there, as, on top of that, with Pandora's Box's power by Evolt's Standing Awakening, it's finally time to play his trump card and get back his own driver. Apparently, the Build driver was not solely Takumi Katsuragi's doing. It is actually the human version of another device, the Evolve driver, that was originally Evolt's, and basically in the conflict on Mars, stopped working. When Evolt possessed Isurugi when he went to Mars, he basically pulled it out of the dust and debris under the Pandora's Box, only to, after the Pandora's Box was opened on Earth, discovered that he needed it to actually harness all of Pandora's Box's powers, and is on top of the potential guardian relationship for why he'd be so obsessed with Ryuga, why basically the Pandora's Box went rogue, created the Skywall, and just didn't blow up the planet to do whatever Evil pretty much wanted to it. But now that he's back on course, he actually needs it back, as he originally gave it to Takumi's father, Shinobu, to get it fixed. He apparently did so, and then so Shinobu handed it over to Takumi, and Takumi hid it inside of the full bottle purification machine. This is something of a plot hole here, because Sento specifically was the one who made it. Except Takumi Katsuragi, before he became Sento Kiryu via Evolt as Bloodstark's mind-wiping, was the one who hid it. So Sento should not be able to find it in a place where he would have known anything about it. Like, okay, maybe he didn't know what it was, and it was just spare parts for the full bottle purification machine, but if that was the case, then Evolt would already know where it is and what parts were used in its construction, because he ran the frickin' cafe they were operating out of. Why not just whisk in, grab the thing? Hell, why didn't he take it before? Oh, apparently it's in 2 pieces, so Sento would have to fix it. But, you know, if it was in Evolt's possession before, and Takumi originally fixed it, or his father fixed it, then what was the holdup? It's like, I got big questions on this one, considering how he needs something back, something he should be easily able to take for himself by just sneaking in the place. Okay, yeah, it's in pieces, and Sento needs to fix it to get it to be fully operational, but again, that's what he originally gave it to Shinobu for. Did Takumi sabotage the thing, and Isurugi just had it laying around? He has technical contacts at Namba. Any of them could have fixed it for him and avoided this entire mess. It's like, there's I feel like this was an unneeded and added in power-up for him. Like, it was something that wasn't originally intended, and they had to add it in because new toy and the Evolve bottles, but the Evolve bottles have been teased as existing since, like, it's episode 33 now, and we first heard about them in the teens with the original reveals of Cross Sea Dragon's Splash Jelly form and Grease and Rogue, so this has clearly been in the planning for a while that I don't see why they put it in so sloppily like this. But yeah, it becomes a battle of trying to rescue Toto's Prime Minister, who, after he gets abducted by Gentoku, you know, Gentoku's father and all this, and trying to trade him, but not actually hand over the Evolve Driver, because they can all tell that this would be bad news, especially from the data Takumi and Shinobu had already gathered on it, which pretty much spells out that Isurugi is Evolved. Evolved has a hazard level of 5 to even use the driver, and yeah, it's interesting because all this data for this information on Evolved and the Evolve driver, it's all in English. It's all on the computer screen. You can pretty much freeze frame the entire thing, and it's not entirely grammatically correct English. Like, it's definitely English written, but it's certainly more legible than a lot of previous attempts at doing the same in Kamen Rider. Like, you know, not just Japan, but Toei's usual propensity for English. It's much less here than it would have been in other places. Gentoku, however, has been a bit interesting as of late. He had the first part of his Rogue miniseries released through the Blu-rays, and he's been acting differently since he lost. And honestly, I don't like the extreme divergence from it, but there is an understandable reason why he's acting differently now as Rogue than he was previously, in that apparently the exposure to nebula gas and getting a hazard level of 3 or 4 results in any effects of basically any screwing with someone's mind that might have been caused by the Pandora's Box, which has been a driving factor in the ambition, desires, and megalomaniacal actions of various cast members that were caused by the Pandora's Box event. Yeah, pretty much that's counteracted by nebula gas exposure, as it causes a physiological reset. So basically, Gentoku is back to how he was before, like, he went crazy and created Faust. Like, he says that he originally made Faust as a way to bridge connections and, like, create a reason behind why the country would need to reunite. Basically it's not the best explained, I'll admit, but it was with that goal, and as he was more affected by that corruption by the Pandora's Box's power, he just decided to start craving ambition. Or, not crave power, not crave ambition. Craving ambition is silly. And honestly, from his changed actions, it's kind of really supported. It's revealed that he's been controlled by Saito and Namba Heavy Industries in specific by a control device being placed in his chest that leaves him in extreme pain if he doesn't obey their wishes, so there's that. But now with the whole fight, the fashion fight done with, he's supporting Sento and giving him the clues to, like, start an effective counterattack against all these forces and odds. So yeah, this is a good way to make him a good guy, in all things considered, and show that he wasn't... Well, we knew him being a bad guy wasn't entirely his fault to begin with, thanks to that flash, but it's a definite difference in... not actions, but portrayal. You see another side of what he was doing before and how it just all went wrong, which is accented by Gentoku actually seeming very remorseful and wanting to make up for not only his own deeds, but the extremes he himself went through in pursuit of his own ideology, in contrast to Sento's, like, love and peace thing, where it's ideological differences in, yeah, that's a nice thing to believe in, but you can't... How's the best way to phrase this? Love and peace are good things, but when the chips are down, you're not exactly going to have the backing to be able to make the kinds of decisions that a leader must. Or, you know, the sending people off to battle, the having to decide who lives and who dies when you're faced with an aggressive power that won't just listen to diplomacy. You need something to back it up, and that's what Gentoku was going for. So it's an extension to the ideological debate they had in the rogue versus tank fight that honestly plays off it much better. And especially since Gentoku pretty much is both given the forgiveness he was now seeking and prevented from allowing it to come to pass, because Stark kills, Evil kills his father when his father rose up to block a lethal blow that was meant for him. And it's like, he got the reconciliation that he ultimately would have wanted with his father, but in the worst way possible for him personally, him being indirectly the cause of his father's death, which he never wanted to be. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to how they play with that, and how Rogue is now a good guy, or at least anti-hero allied with the heroes. Now, this goes into a bit of spoiler territory, but, Evolt, now that he's recovered the Evol driver, actually touch on this first. Evolt, Commodore Evol is very busy design-wise. I mean, I know entirely what they were going for. It's a bunch of laves and astrological equipment from the olden days, mixed with the general cosmos theme, and a suit that, with its contrast points, it's very busy, but it's cohesively awesome. I think the best way to describe it is, it feels kind of like what a sailor would wear in a weird way, like the thick trench coat. I keep getting Marvelous and Bosco vibes for it, and I don't entirely know why. But yeah, it has a constellation motif to part of the armor. That's definitely how the rider kick shows up as. It's a very good design. But going back to what I was getting at is that we know that there's at least one more Kamen Rider to debut in the series. Kamen Rider Mad Rogue, who also uses the Evol driver and the Bat and Engine full bottles as one of the unused best matches of the series. And as the Evol driver and the Build driver are basically palette swaps of each other, the Evol driver can do Evol matches, which are enhanced version best matches. So the question that's been wandering around is, who is Mad Rogue going to be? Is that just going to be an upgrade to Kamen Rider Rogue? So we go Night Rogue, Kamen Rider Mad Rogue, especially since it goes back to the Batful bottle? Well, I don't think that's the way they're going with this. In the most recent scans for the, from Televi-kun, which first showed off Mad Rogue is pushing up his glasses kind of like, you know, the evil people do with the back of their hand. And, I'm forgetting the guy's name. Utsumi, I think it is. Utsumi. I'm looking it up just so I can get the name right. Kamen Rider Build. See, this is why I wish I was doing this next to my PC, but again, I have to figure out a good way to do that. Characters. Damn it, Phantom Wiki. Nariaki Usumi. Yeah, I was right on that. I think it's going to be Utsumi. He is currently in possession of the Trans Skiing Gum and the Bat's not best match full model, and so he's the current Night Rogue. The Engine full bottle is clearly the inspiration for the Engine Bros the Hell Bros engine and the two engine gears, I would say. So he's definitely, thematically with everything presented in the show, he makes the most sense for becoming Mad Rogue, especially since in the previews about Mad Rogue, he is another villain character that will be fighting Sento and Gentoku and Kitsumi. There's something in the previews there with the two rogues side by side, so it doesn't make sense for Gentoku to be Mad Rogue if, you know, Mad Rogue is going to be a villain again, and after Gentoku has had this pretty dramatic showing he's not the true villain people thought him as moment. So for him to actually go back to being a villain makes no freaking sense, whereas Utsumi has repeatedly shown himself to be the limey worm that isn't even fighting the indoctrination of being one of the Nanba kids, and Utsumi was also pretty freaking harsh with being the one with the torture button on Gentoku. So with him also remaining Evolt's ally even after his big power-up, all in the name of Nanba Heavy Industries, it would make the most sense for him to be the one that gets this next power-up, since he has been a prominent character, and that's usually how these shows have been rolling as of late. So yeah, Evolt's debut is a curb stomp. I am looking forward to see how that plays out with the main heroes, because basically the only one to get in a tussle over the majority of events this time, in the most recent episode at least, was just Rogue versus Evolt. We haven't seen how he matches up to the rest of the characters, and we already know that Rogue, Gentoku, is the second lowest on the totem pole currently between Cross Sea Dragon Magma and Rabbit Tank Tank. So we still haven't seen Evolt's true power, especially since Evolt can apparently have his own limited form changes. So I'm looking forward to how that wraps up. And yeah, this was a longer vlog session than I've been having lately, so hopefully we'll get back to normal size stuff now that I'm all caught up, and we'll see how the whole, like, setting up for all this goes again. Hopefully next week I will have a better audio cue for you all. So, thanks for watching. See you all next week.